Hello, esteemed participants. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. After an enriching day of our online conference, the People of Pulse 2023, we are excited to extend our warm welcome to all for the final day of this virtual conference, brimming with knowledge, collaboration, and connections. For those who missed our initial welcome message, here it is again. People Ops Pulse conference has attracted many HR and people ops professionals from all over the world, with close to 800 participants spanning from 65 incredible countries. I am awed by the sheer power of technology that bridges vast oceans and diverse cultures, bringing us together under the banner of human resources. It would be wonderful if you all could enter your full names along with the country from where you all are joining in the chat box. Would love to see the diversity that we have here today. Yesterday was a wealth of insights and inspiration, and we're ready for another day of dynamic speakers and interactive sessions. Let's explore Agile People Ops human resources and shape the future of work together. Get ready with your questions, notes, and open minds as we make this last day truly exceptional. As I welcome you all for this incredible journey, I would like to request each of you to participate through chat or asking questions in the questions tab. You also have an option to network with other members on the conference platform, and our wonderful support team is happy to answer any questions that you might have. Let's now welcome our first speaker for today, Dr. Amy Narishkin, who is going to talk on the topic Awkward to Awesome, How Leaders Boost Agility, Diversity, and Collaboration with Cultural Intelligence. She is the CEO of Empowering Partners LLC with a PhD in adult education and 30 years experience. Dr. Amy Narishkin is a consultant, strategist, and executive coach helping organizations across multiple industries, including financial, healthcare, construction, and manufacturing, making the shift to cultural intelligence. Welcome, Dr. Amy. The stage is all yours.
Good morning. Thank you. I've already seen, I'm sorry, it's not just good morning. It's good morning, it's good afternoon, and good evening. I so appreciate the opportunity to be with you all. I've already seen in the chat box go by that Nigeria and South Africa and India and the United States are present. Wow. To be a part of such a global effort is intriguing and exciting. Mariana, I have a question for you. Will you be changing my slides or can I change my slides? I can't hear you. You're muted.
Sorry about that. I will be changing your slides because you won't have access right now. So you just let me know when to change the slide.
Okay. Then how about I just kind of signal to you to change it?
I wouldn't be able to see you because I'm on a different window.
Oh, okay. Boy, this just gets more and more interesting. All right. Please go to the next slide.
Yes.
How about you give me the whole agenda? There we go. We'll stop there. Perfect. Thank you. So during this hour that we have together, we're going to start with a contemplative moment. And I promise that will make more sense in just a moment. But I know that somebody who shows up for an event like this, a workshop like mine, does more before 10 a.m. than most people do all day. So at the very least, we're going to get grounded. And that's where we'll start this time together. I'm going to ask you a warm-up question. And for my introverts in the room, my neuroatypical people in the room, I want you to have a heads up about that question because some of us just need a little think time. It's actually on the worksheet that I provided. And Mariana, is it on the website? Is the worksheet available?
Yes, everybody, you can access the handout by clicking on the gift option. It is the second last option. The handout is present. You can download it from there.
Perfect. All right. On that handout, you'll see that the warm-up question is, what makes it hard to talk with people who have a different perspective? And from there, we're going to develop some common vocabulary, and that'll lead me to a story that I'd like to tell you to kind of ground that vocabulary. And I'll then we'll make the case for diversity. Like, why would we bother if it's sometimes hard to talk with people who are different? And then we're going to talk about what keeps us from connecting with people. There's actually a global reason that we struggle, something we all have in common. And so we'll unpack that. And then I'm going to make sure that you've got 3 tools. I'll ask you a wrap-up question and tell you where we go from here. All right, next slide, Mariana. This is the contemplative moment. So no matter what time of day it is, this is a really good moment. This is a really beautiful moment. And when we slow down and take a few breaths, it makes a lot of difference when we're talking with people who are different. It also gives us an opportunity not only to see them and value them, gives us an opportunity to see and value ourselves in all our humanity, all the beauty and messiness that each of us is. So if you'll just take a moment to get grounded, and by that I mean either sit or stand straight, and then feel your feet. That's what gets you connected to the planet and to one another and to your own heart and soul. So as you feel your feet, at your pace, I'll just ask you to take 3 deep belly breaths. And if you'd like, you can put your hand on your heart and on your gut and just be with you. All right, Mariana already this morning has expressed, or her evening has expressed such grace for me. She was able to slow down and support me as we were getting online together. It's in this moment that we see more of possibilities. She expressed that kind of grace. Next slide, please. So in the chat box, if you'll just take a moment to answer my question, and I'd love to hear your response, just 2 or 3 words. What makes it hard to talk with people who are different? However you define different. Mariana, if you would read what people are entering or answer the question yourself, either one.
Somebody has mentioned it could be a language barrier.
Yes, it could be. It could make it hard to talk with somebody if you speak a different language. Absolutely. And in fact, you could both be speaking English and have very different understandings of that word, which is actually why we'll be developing common vocabulary, just for that reason. It's a different, because somebody, Evans is saying it's just a different culture.
Yes, difference in culture.
Yes. And that's one of the words that we need to get defined and make sure we're on the same page with that word.
Rebecca John is saying the unknown make it challenging and potentially intimidating.
Absolutely. Just not knowing them can be intimidating. That unknown, it's just makes it so awkward. It's beautiful.
Nancy Kumi is saying it's just awkward sometimes because you may not have the same viewpoints.
Right. You might not have the same point of view, and you don't know until you find out. And if without using your cultural intelligence, you don't know how to find out. So actually, Mariana, what was her name that just said that?
Nancy Kumi.
So Nancy, you bring up an excellent point that when you have a different perspective and you just don't know how to proceed, that's actually why we need cultural intelligence. And we're going to get that word defined. Let's move into that. But I want you to know that if it's awkward or uncomfortable for you, you can imagine what that means on an organizational scale, if people are just awkward and uncomfortable about talking one-to-one, what's the impact on your company or organization? Next slide, please. So what makes it hard? These are the answers I often get, and they very much, go ahead and fill it out. There's 4 of them. Feels awkward, may say the wrong thing. You don't know what to say, and you might upset the person. So much in common with what you told me. This is a kind of a global problem. Next slide. Here's the impact on an organization, and there are 7 if you could just load them. When people don't know how to talk with one another, they don't have cultural intelligence, colleagues and clients are excluded and conversations are stifled. There can be fighting between groups or departments, whether it's in a place of worship or whether it's in your community center or whether it's in a global organization. There can be infighting between groups. And that's what makes it so hard to attract, retain, and promote diverse talent and suppresses markets, and why there can be low employee engagement and innovation. And it tends to push people out the door because they don't feel seen and valued. So I've used this term cultural intelligence now a couple of times. Let's get this defined. Next slide, please. The starting point for all cross-cultural initiatives, just so you know, is to develop this common vocabulary. Next slide. Here's intelligence, and one at a time, please, Mariana. You all know there's intellectual intelligence up in your head. In the United States in particular, we tend to honor intellectual intelligence. We live from the neck up. And so often in these societies, Western-based societies, we tend to live from the neck up. And we forget there's other ways of knowing. The second one, Mariana? There's emotional intelligence. Your feeling centers so often in your heart. So there's your head and your heart. And number 3, Mariana? There's gut intelligence. And you've all experienced that gut feeling. Sometimes your gut knows often before your head, which is really intriguing. And for cultural intelligence, you actually need your head, your heart, and your gut to genuinely get to know someone. So that all of those things lead to number 4, Mariana, cultural intelligence. So I've used this term cultural intelligence, and I want you to know anytime I use the word intelligence, very simply, I just mean it's a knowing. Intelligence is a way of knowing. And you can use your head, heart, and your gut for knowing more about a person and a situation. And it's that situational context that's cultural intelligence. Next slide, please. So here's a definition of cultural intelligence, and you don't have to know it fully yet because I haven't given you any context around it, but I just want to kind of put it out there. Could you give me these next 2, please? There you go. Cultural intelligence is what enables you to talk with a person who has a different perspective. It's as simple as that. Somebody who has a different perspective. It's because we accept them in their context as valid, and then we adapt our behavior to show respect. I'm going to unpack that more, I promise. That's a lot. Next slide, please. So culture, what is culture? And in the chat box, if you could just write a couple of words, a word that comes to mind when you hear that word, culture. Can you tell I run an interactive workshop? You're on the hook here. You've got to help.
Yes, I can tell. No answers yet.
Mariana, when you hear the word culture, what comes to mind?
Culture, sense of belonging.
Nobody has ever said that before. Absolutely. It can create a sense of belonging, and also a culture can create a sense of isolation. So often in the United States, I'll hear that about our culture. Wow, you're deep, Mariana.
Okay, somebody, Danielle has said welcoming environment.
Yes, it can be a welcoming environment, or not so much. Both of those are right.
Carissa says, sorry.
Go ahead.
Carissa says norms, standards, values that drive behavior.
Oh my gosh, that's a very thorough definition of culture, and it's spot on. Values, beliefs, perspectives that drive our behavior. Absolutely. If you also haven't noticed, I ask questions that don't have wrong answers. So you're spot on. I'm much more superficial when I think of the word culture. Opera, tortillas come to mind, food. Anything else, Mariana?
Hope says a way of doing things.
It's a way of doing things. Yeah, we have a very deep crowd here. People ops attracts deep, intelligent people. Are there any more?
Yes, John says culture includes language, ideas, beliefs, customs, codes.
He's spot on. John, you're spot on. I love it.
Kerry says a way of living.
Yes, it is. It is a way of living. That's beautiful.
Oluwang Bemiro says culture is a way of life of a group of people.
Yep, it sure is.
Trishelle says recurring methods used daily.
Yep. So one of the things that we need to recognize here, Mariana, is the diversity in the definitions of culture, which is exactly why we need to have some common vocabulary, because people are coming at even the word culture from all these different perspectives. Could you go to the next slide? I'm going to share my definition of culture, the one that I'm just working with, and it includes much of what you all have said. Go ahead and add the next. There it is. Culture. It's a set of attitudes, values, goals, and behaviors that a group of people have in common. It's what you all said. In the next one, it comes in two levels. There's visible and invisible culture. I just want you to have kind of a graphic. I am 35-year veteran to teaching, and I know that there are visual learners in the room, so I'm going to give you a graphic. Next slide, please. Here it is. Hit the top one. This is Kushner's iceberg model of culture. And there's visible culture, many of which you named, which is traditions and food and laws, behaviors, stuff that you can see. And so often, I just want you to know that the brain really likes visible culture. In the United States, so often when people go to San Francisco, they might go to Chinatown. Or in New York City, they might go to Little Italy, right? They're in the United States, but yet they go to these ethnic places. And we tend to love brains, all of us, everyone on the planet tends to like visible culture. Here's the problem. Next one, Mariana. It's the below the surface that the brain does not like. There's the assumptions and the perceptions and the values. And I have a feeling the brain doesn't like it because we can't see it. And in fact, hit it, Mariana? This is where problems come up. When you've got a misunderstanding with somebody, it's probably because this below the surface stuff hasn't been clarified. We haven't gotten on the same page. So that's really important when you're taking into consideration someone's context, is you got to get below the surface and find out what's important to them, what's valuable to them. What's making them angry may have something to do with a very different value system. All right. Oh, I just got a thumbs up from Carrie. That's awesome. Thank you for your encouragement. Mariana, next slide. So there's two types of culture that I want you to know about. In every organization in the world, any organization of people, you're going to have two types of culture, whether that's in your place of worship, in your kid's school, in your office, and your community, your city, your country, all has these two types. Mariana, there's the first type is there's the dominant culture, a group that's the most powerful, widespread, or influential in your organization of people, and the non-dominant group. And it's a distinct group that coexists, but it's subordinate to that dominant group. It looks like my slides, Mariana, when they came over, they got morphed a little bit. So I don't know if you hit it one more time, if you'll be able to see what makes a group subordinate. Oh, okay, it can see it a little bit. So this is nothing you don't know, but what makes a group subordinate to another group can be because of race, nationality, gender, caste, religion, orientation, disability. Even appearance and education can make somebody, as you know, subordinate to the dominant group. Next slide. So here's where I'm going to share a story about an HR professional who had a pretty legitimate question for me. So, pressure's off. I'm not going to ask you a question for a minute. You get to sit back and listen to my story that illustrates what an HR person was struggling with. He actually said, Amy, I struggle with people who make ignorant remarks. He has his own internationally renowned HR consulting firm, and he says, I work all over North America, and by that he means Canada and the United States, and I work with a lot of different people. And he said, with all the talk in the media, clients want to talk about race and ethnicity and heritage. And he said, what blows me away is that I actually bump into people who think racism doesn't exist, who think colorism doesn't exist, that it's just a construct of the media. He said, that makes my blood boil. It makes me so mad. Larry went on to say, so occasionally I'll challenge their views. Well, you can imagine growing up in the 1960s in the United States, there was lynching going on when I was a child. People got hung. That wasn't the media, that was reality. And they'll respond to me, but that was a long time ago. And that makes me so angry. And he goes, and so sometimes I just don't challenge it. But the problem is then I feel like I'm complicit with what was just said. And so I don't know whether to ignore it or object. And I said, I get it. It kind of makes you feel like you're stuck between a rock and a hard place. You don't know how to respond, ignore it or object. But if you ignore it, then you're complicit. And then if you object, it starts a fight. What do I do? And he was kind of asking, is it silence or violence? And I said, there's actually a third way to respond. And so now the HR manager is kind of sitting up and he goes, what do you mean? There's another way? And I said, can I give you an example rather than just kind of answer that? He said, absolutely. I said, I remember sitting across from, he was a white male CEO at a coffee shop. It was a few years ago. And he said, and he knows my work teaching cultural intelligence. And he said to me, Amy, I just don't understand why those football players, this is American football, not soccer, why those American football players are taking a knee on the football field. And I said to him, what prompts you to ask me why they're taking a knee? And he said, I served in the military. They're taking a knee during the American national anthem. And that's disrespectful that they're taking a knee and not standing with the flag. That flag means a lot to me as a military veteran. And I said to that CEO, I get it. It hurts when people are being disrespectful. Our flag means a lot to me too. In fact, I'm married to a Frenchman. And when we went over to France to honor the 75th anniversary of D-Day, we saw American flags all over France, posted at the same level as the French flag. They were still honoring 75 years later what American soldiers had done. So I know how important that flag is. And the CEO said to me, this white CEO said to me, yeah, you get it. You understand that that flag means freedom. And I said to the CEO, can I offer another perspective? And the CEO said, sure. And I said, what might it be like for a man, a black man, who is on the football field in a uniform, but when he's just riding his bike down the street in jeans, he's not famous in that context. He's perceived in the United States as a threat every day of his life. Just by driving a car, you're perceived to be a danger. Could it be that when he takes a knee on the football field, that maybe it's a quiet, respectful way to protest, that he has a very different experience from your experience? The CEO was quiet. So I told my HR friend, it was really interesting how the CEO just thought. And he said, I hadn't thought of it that way. That's an excellent point. Thank you. So what I told the HR professional was I wasn't interested in correcting him. I mean, I wanted to correct him. I wanted to come in hot. I wanted to fix the situation. I wanted to tell him to get a clue. But just like we started with this workshop, I took a breath and I imagined what it was like for the other guy and his perspective as a military veteran. And by doing that, I could appreciate him. And then I said it out loud. I said that appreciation out loud. And by saying that appreciation out loud, then I could ask him, tell me about your experience. And I could, he told me about, I'm sorry, after I acknowledged him out loud, he was willing to hear another perspective. And then he could embrace another perspective. And Larry said, Larry was the HR manager. Larry said, I didn't know there was what you're calling, Amy, a third way to respond. And said, this is exactly what happens. When we work with another person toward a mutual understanding, we can actually feel empathy, compassion for the other person, which is why we have to get out of our head and into our heart space and engage both, right? And that's how we make sure both the other person and we feel valued and seen, by appreciating their context. So you can see my steps. And Larry, the HR guy, said to me, oh my gosh, I never knew that there was this third way to respond, that I don't have to do silence or violence, but can come kind of outside that binary context of the brain and feel with the person. That's about problem solving. And I'm like, yes, dude, that's it. So just notice those steps that I took you through in the story, and we'll revisit them. That's leading to the tools at the end. But I've got just a little bit more to show you here. Mariana, will you share a slide? Share the next slide. I want to make sure we've got this vocabulary really under wraps. When I use this term diversity, next slide, this is what makes it important. The next two, please. Diversity comes in two flavors. It's both visible diversity. I'm clearly a 58-year-old cisgendered white woman, right? And there's invisible diversity, the part you can't see about me, my religion, my education, my ability or my disabilities, how much I've traveled, my orientation. So that's what's going on with diversity. And it's a very simple definition, but that's what I'm working with. The next one. Diversity impacts, and you know this, but I need to say it so often in many rooms. If you could just hit the next three. Our productivity, our safety and health and well-being, and our ability to navigate educational, financial, and legal systems. That's why diversity is so important, because how I identify visibly directly impacts my ability to reach my potential and be well. And so when people downplay diversity, they're downplaying people's ability to navigate these systems that are life-giving. Here's an example. Next slide, please, Mariana. Go ahead. And this is a research from the United States. When employees of color in the United States not only encounter more negative incidents than their white counterparts, they also miss out on experiences that leave them feeling good. Next one. So there's more reasons to leave the organization and fewer reasons to stay. Next one. That gap between a positive experience accounts for 10 to 15% difference between employees of color and whites in the United States. 10 to 15% difference in attrition. Go ahead. Next one, Mariana. So that means next. Retention isn't just about avoiding negative experiences for people. It's also about having positive experiences. Positive experiences meaning kind of like what I did with the CEO, hearing somebody out, having coffee with somebody and learning about their context. It could mean career mapping and talking with a mentor, a mentee, about what they hope for the future in their career. That's the positive experiences that are missing for employees of color so often within the United States. Next slide. So with all this disconnect, I'm creating the debate case for diversity here, just so you know. Does diversity even add value? Go ahead, next slide. Here's the problem. Next. Merely making an organization look diverse lowers performance. If you just have people looking different, you got a problem. Next slide. This graphic can show you what's happening here. If you have a diverse teams and people's individual stories and their uniqueness are not heard and valued, you're actually going to lower performance. You might as well keep the organization homogenous, which means all the same. But if you recognize those differences as an opportunity to dive deeper with somebody and get to know them, you're going to experience and appreciate more innovation and more productivity, more engagement when people feel valued and seen. And that's a little bit why I have job security, right? Developing cultural intelligence so we can value these and see our differences as an asset. Next slide. Next slide. So what in our cultures, and it's not just the United States, this is a global thing, what makes it hard to talk with people who are different and connect with them? Next slide. Cultural intelligence isn't something you just have. It's something that we all develop. And you can see there are 5 stages of cultural intelligence. You know these. You'll recognize them. Next one, Mariana. There's denial, people who miss differences completely. The next one, people who are in polarization, who are very judgmental of differences, not accepting. The third one, minimization, where we downplay differences. The next one, acceptance, where we are accepting of people and their differences. And the next one, the final one, is adaptation, where we are accepting of them and we can adapt our behavior to show genuine respect. So a lot of times people think we're in polarization around the world, but we're not. Where most of us are is in minimization. In fact, it's a bell curve. Most of us are in minimization. 66.8% of the people around the world practice minimization. That's why I can have clients in China and India and the United Kingdom and the United States, because this is what we're overcoming together, is minimization. Minimization is so important that I've got the next 2 slides dedicated to it. Can you move to the next one, Mariana? So if you're part of the dominant group, you minimize. Go ahead. We focus on what we all have in common when we're part of the dominant group. Keep going. Assume people are just like us. Keep going. We miss differences. Keep going. And it pressures people to assimilate to the dominant culture. And the last one. And we make people feel invisible. So let me give you an example of what that's like. And you're probably thinking, so if you'd like to put in the chat box examples of minimization, please feel free. But I just want you to know, well, actually, I'll give examples after I do the next slide. Can you populate the next slide, please, Mariana? For non-dominant group members, it's you're practicing minimization too. You focus on what we all have in common. Keep going. Let's populate this. You see differences. But the difference is you go along to get along to survive, and you feel pressured to assimilate. And there's one more. It makes you feel invisible. So I'm going to give you a few examples, and in your chat box, if you'd like to give an example, I should appreciate that. But an example of minimization might be, oh, if a parent says to a child who just fell down, get up, you're fine. That's minimization. We don't know if the child is fine, actually. If in the United States, sometimes you'll hear people say, oh, I don't see color. And, they're just trying to gloss over and make people feel good. But Saying I don't see color makes people feel invisible. That's kind of like me saying to Mariana, I don't see your womanhood. We have to see each other's individuality and uniqueness. I don't see color is minimization. If a man says to a woman, that's not sexism, is it? Well, it's none of his business. If she thinks it's sexism, it's sexism. If she feels diminished, that's minimization. It's minimizing to her, and it hurts. So those are some examples of minimization. Is there an example that you have you can put in the chat box? Mariana, what are people populating, or what's an example in your life of minimization?
Sorry, Dr. Amy, somebody has a question. They are asking if they can download this presentation from anywhere. Are they allowed access to this presentation?
Oh, we'll take questions like that are kind of off on a different topic later, if you don't mind, Mariana. I'm asking the question about minimization right now.
Yes. An example of this was apartheid in South Africa. Minorities of color were segregated.
I'm going to turn up my volume. I'm struggling to hear you. Can you say that again? Something in Africa?
Yes, an example of this was apartheid in South Africa. Minorities of color were segregated.
Yes. Apartheid is a systemic version of minimization, making people feel invisible every single day, every moment of every single day. Absolutely. Is there another example?
Yes, deliberately insulting someone.
Could you stop, please? I'm sorry. I have kids behind me doing stuff. There's my humanity showing up. Mariana, what were you saying?
Deliberately insulting someone and brushing it off as a joke.
Oh my gosh, that's a perfect example. You know I'm only kidding, but you haven't checked to see the impact on the other person. Oh my gosh, that's a great example of minimization. Two excellent examples. Any others?
When someone struggles to grasp a concept in business or its processes, oh, don't worry, you'll get it, without gaining deeper insight into the issues faced.
Oh, don't worry, you'll get it. Don't worry about it. Oh my gosh, that's another perfect. There's not. These are great. I have never gotten such great examples in a workshop of minimization. This stuff happens all the time to people. We do it to ourselves and one another. Any others, Mariana?
Yes, a case study of Cameroon. If you speak English in the French region, you are always looked under.
Yeah, there you go. Perfect example. That sidelines and silences people. Perfect. Another one, Mariana?
Disregarding different people's views and opinions.
Yep. Yep. Because we want to focus on what we all have in common. And we think that if we don't focus on all that we have in common, then we're going to upset people. And actually, it's more upsetting to not hear somebody. Any others, Mariana?
That's it for now.
Oh, that's beautiful. Beautiful examples. All right. Next slide, please. This group has got minimization down pat. So now that we know better, how can we do better? So the thing is, when you know minimization's in play, now you're empowered to stop doing it, right? And so one of the things, particularly if you identify as a historically underrepresented group. So if you're a woman or a person of color, anytime that you're part of the minority population, you can internalize minimization and downplay you and think to myself, I might think to myself, I'm not going to share. My opinion doesn't matter that much, right? Or not apply for that job because I just don't know if I meet all the qualifications. You can internally minimize as much as externally minimize. And that's a real danger because it's very much on the down low. It's kind of below our radar. And when we know about it, that's when we can start doing better. And that's what I'm going to address now. Could you go to the next slide? How we can do better? We're going to use our cultural intelligence, which is, next one, where we accept ourselves and the other people and our uniqueness as we are in all our humanity, all our messiness and all our beauty. Accept, and then the next one, Mariana, and then we adapt to show genuine respect. So for the example of the child that fell down, they fall down. Instead of minimizing and saying, get up, you're fine, you might say, ouch, what's going on? How can I support you? Or somebody who, what was the example? Somebody had shared a joke, and rather than brushing off, I'm only joking, and not finding out, you might accept that the fact that the person may have been hurt, and then to adapt your words and actions, you might say, oh, wait a minute, that was funny to me. How'd that land on you? So we're acknowledging that it might be funny to me. We're not diminishing ourselves. And I would like to know how it landed on you. That way you're taking care of both you and the other person. And that's kind of your measure for cultural intelligence. Are both of you cared for? Both of you feeling valued and seen? Next slide. So let me break this down for you, what it looks like and sounds like. Next slide. There are 3 tools that I'm giving you, 3 cultural intelligence tools. Stop, ask, listen, and then I'm going to give you a bonus, one more, to check. Okay, let's break this down. Next slide. Stop. Okay. This is an acronym, and this is the place we need to hover the most, because stop is where your agility comes from. This is where you can easily pivot, is when you hit it. Next one. Slow down. Next one. Take 3 deep breaths. Remember at the beginning, wait 1 second, Mariana. At the beginning, we got contemplative, slowed down, and we took 3 deep breaths. So when somebody comes in hot with a comment, that's right at that moment. You can choose silence, violence, or go the third way. You can react with silence or violence, or go the third way, which means you're going to stop, which means you're going to slow down, take 3 deep breaths, and you're going to observe your feelings and the other person's emotions. And in that, just that moment, you're going to feel your your anxiousness, like when that CEO came in hot and said to me, I just don't understand why that person takes a knee. I could have reacted, or I can respond with quiet. And notice how they're feeling. Notice my anger at them, which is legit. My anger is legit. It was justified, but that didn't mean I had to act on it. I could also notice their defensiveness. And then I knew I was safe in that situation. And then the next one, Mariana, number P, is proceed with curiosity and wonder. If you're safe, so ladies, if you're talking with a man, or children talking with an older person, or a person who's a part of a church talking with their pastor, there's a power differential there. If you're talking with somebody and you're safe, you can proceed with curiosity and wonder. This right here is what gives you your power, your agility, is when you slow it down. You have time to take a breath, observe the situation, kind of be a witness to it from the outside, and proceed with curiosity and wonder. Learn about the other person. Next slide. This is what learning about the other person. You heard it in my story. You ask gently. Next. Would you mind if I ask you a question? Next. After you get their permission, what was your experience? Or next. How'd that feel? I asked the man if I could ask a question. He gave me permission. And then he told me about the fact that he's a military veteran, right? And he told me how he felt. So now he feels valued and seen right there. Next slide. And what you're doing during that time is you're listening to learn. Hit all 4, Mariana. These are the 4 things you're doing when you're listening. Either you're listening to understand, which is why you're slowing down, or you're just listening to be right, to speak, to fix it, or maybe you're not even listening at all. With cultural intelligence, you're listening to understand their experience. You appreciate your experience. You don't diminish you. You appreciate their experience. You're listening to understand them. And that's why you got to slow it down. If you want to be right or you just want to speak, you're not listening, don't engage in the conversation. Wait until you're rested. Wait until you've gotten a snack. You can say to somebody, can I circle back with you on that? I need to go to the bathroom, right? Anything you need to do to slow that down. And here's the bonus one. Next slide, please. Oh, I want you to hear them out. I want you to affirm their experience, just like I did with that guy when I said, I can imagine how important that flag is to you. Next slide. Here's your bonus tool, and pretty key. Go ahead, Mariana. Check your impact. And there's two ways. Mariana, if you could hit both of those. How did that land on you, or what was the impact of my words? So if the man gives a joke and you notice the other person isn't laughing, you might say, okay, that was funny to me, but how did that land on you? Or what was the impact of my words? That's the way to find out whether or not you've minimized somebody. You just check your impact. There's no way you can read other people's minds. You can actually just say to your employee, all right, here are the parameters for this situation. How does that impact you? All right. Or, if a man gives a woman a compliment, well, sexual violence is a reality for women around the world, right? And women don't necessarily want compliments about their appearance. So instead of giving a compliment about their wardrobe, give a compliment about their work, right? But you still may not know how that lands. So just check. How did that land on you? What was the impact of my words? Next slide, please. So, Mariana, how much time do we have left? I think you're muted.
We have about 10 minutes.
10 minutes. Okay. So what I'll do with you, and we'll probably fill the time with this, is an exercise called What, So What, Now What. All right, hit it, please. I'm going to have you apply. So I'm going to ask you to name some of the tools that I just gave you. The next slide. So what does it feel like having a few tools now? And number 3, what do you imagine doing with these tools? Next slide. Okay. So Mariana, you can chime in here, or anybody puts in the chat box. What are some of the tools that I just gave you? Mariana, you're muted. You can name a tool too if you would like.
Yes. Listen, like stop, ask, and then listen.
Yes, exactly. Stop. And stop is the one that gives you the agility. Exactly.
Shabala says, listen to learn.
Yeah, listen to understand, learn their experience. Beautiful. That's not minimizing anymore. Go ahead, Mariana. I'm sorry I interrupted.
Laura says, stop, ask, and listen.
Stop, ask, and listen, please.
Kerry says, check your impact.
Oh, please. Please check how your words land on other people. Talk about a place that gives you agility right there. Mariana, go ahead.
Obert says, don't ignore.
Yeah, don't ignore. And let me flip that, because when you say don't do something, the brain only hears the word ignore. And we don't want to say the negative. We actually want to flip that. So if we're not going to ignore somebody, what we're going to do is we're going to hear somebody out and learn their experience. So don't ignore equals hear somebody out. Let them finish talking without interrupting, for goodness sake, and affirm their experience and learn about it. That's beautiful. Any others, Mariana?
Yes. Nancy, ask to clarify and check.
A check. I need an example of why she needs to know. Checking is just checking your impact. Can she elaborate on that in the chat box?
Yes, she said ask to clarify and check.
Yes, yes. Ask and then check. Beautiful. Thank you. All right, next slide, please. Here are the 3 tools. Keep going. Just knock out this slide. Keep going. Keep going. So what does it feel like having a few tools? Now that you got a few tools in your toolbox, you can tell I often work in the construction industry, right? So I have to use the word tools. What's it feel like? Give me one word. What does it feel like having a few tools?
Okay, we have an answer from Laura. A wow moment.
I didn't understand. I'm sorry.
Wow moment.
Oh, wow moment. Yeah. I'm so glad you feel thrilled. That's wonderful.
Carissa says empowered.
Empowered. Thank you. You even use the name of my business. I love you. How does it feel to have a few tools?
Better equipped.
Equipped. Nice. Maybe it's because it's tools. That's appropriate. All right, next slide. So what can you imagine doing with these tools? Let's I want you to answer that question, but I'm going to just give you the context and we'll come back to that slide if you don't mind, Mariana. So I'm just going to share with you how this fits in the bigger picture. Next slide. This is an example of one of 5 workshop series that I do that get people up and talking with a set of tools with each workshop. Each workshop's it can be an hour or 90 minutes, and each workshop gives you more tools for talking with people who are different. And I use these workshops globally in English-speaking countries, obviously, and giving people a full set of tools to talk with people who are different. Next slide. And it's part of a path to cultural intelligence. You can see that people do the workshop series right in the middle, and before they take the IDI, or the Intercultural Development Inventory, which is an online assessment tool that lets us know your stage of cultural intelligence. Are you and your organization practicing minimization, or you are polarizing? So the IDI lets us know that. Next stage. So what can you do today? Next slide, please. Oh my gosh, it's populating backwards. Keep going. We get 3, 1, 2. One more time. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, and I would love that. I would love to be connected with you there. I love my international connections. You can take the IDI to discover your mindset. Are you inadvertently or intentionally polarizing people, minimizing people, accepting people? You can find out your mindset, and you can invite me to do a workshop in your organization. Next one. Next slide, please. Here's a discount, and you can email me for a discount to take the IDI. Next slide. Okay, and this is my last slide. And I'd like to go back. Mariana, just keep it here. But I'm going to ask people to put in the chat box what they can imagine doing with some of these tools now that you've got them. What can you imagine doing now that you've got these tools? Now that you're equipped and empowered feeling?
So Hope says better relating with others.
Yeah. Yes. It's better relating with others.
Carissa says it will influence how effective my communication will be, both verbal and non-verbally, facilitating better interactions, especially navigating difficult conversations.
Yes. This is a way to navigate difficult conversations, both domestically and internationally. When we stop and hear somebody out and feel our feelings and notice them, we are agile and we are culturally intelligent.
Benga John says employees engagement.
Yes. People will be more engaged when they feel seen and valued. Exactly. Beautiful.
Laura says putting on practice, developing and improving the relationships with other people.
Yep. This will improve your relationships. In fact, even with my own husband, probably once a day, I'll even say, all right, how did that land on you? Or what did you hear? What was the impact of my words? I have 4 children that go from 21 to 31. And even when I'm talking with them, I'll say, all right, what did you hear? How did that land on you? It keeps my relationships personally and professionally open.
Beatrice says empowered.
Yeah.
Kerry says more confident to interact with others with different perspectives.
Yes.
Adedion says better communication with people to foster love and commitment.
Yes. This is how you spread the love. Exactly.
Oluwag Bemero says better understanding of perspective of people and strengthen conversation.
Yes. Around the world, this is the same skill set that helps you make sure the people around you feel valued and seen. And you're the one with cultural intelligence, so you hear them out first. You don't have to be heard yet. You'll be heard. When you make sure the other person feels heard, then they can put down what is burdening them, and then they'll have the love in their heart to give back to you. But you're the one that's going to have to go first. And sometimes when you're mad or angry or jealous, you want them to understand you, but they don't have cultural intelligence. You do. So you get to go first. And I'm sorry. Sometimes I apply the 24-hour rule. If somebody's got me upset, I don't respond for 24 hours and I can get perspective and more love in my heart. Are there any questions, burning questions before we wrap up?
Any questions from the audience?
You all can see my email is here, and this is my website. I'm revamping my website right now, and it'll be fresh and new in about a week, which is really exciting. I've developed an online course that's coming November 1st of my full workshop series. It's a self-study, and it's being hosted by a university here in St. Louis. So I'm pretty excited about that. Any questions, Mariana?
No, just comments on the previous question that you had. It will
Okay.
enhance job satisfaction,
Yes. Yes, it will.
a new outlook on approaching people with differences,
Yes. I'm glad
better
you know it's new. It's new and it's not new at the same time.
better understanding and improving empathy during conversations with people of cultures.
Yes. Yes. Even if we come from very different backgrounds, very different cultures, we can slow down and appreciate their dignity as a human being and their experience as unique and not downplay it just to kind of avoid conflict, but to really appreciate them. This is a beautiful audience, Mariana. I'm so grateful to be invited and to share. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So everybody can connect with Dr. Amy. She has mentioned her website and her email address as well. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Dr. Amy, for this
Thank
great
you.
session today. It was such a
Mariana,
pleasure.
may I say something?
Yes.
I just want to say if anybody wants to send me an email with some of the insights or something that was really important to them, that makes this teacher feel really good when I can know that I've been a blessing. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. It was really a pleasure listening to you speak, Dr. Amy.
Thank you.
And we now understand that, by embracing diversity and fostering cultural intelligence, that is the key to unlocking a world of endless possibilities
Yes.
in modern workplaces.
Yes.
Thank you once again.
Thank you. Thank you.
So our next session starts in 1 hour, and everybody can use this time either to network here or on the platform with other participants, or take a bio break, whatever you would love to do during this break. And our next session topic is Living Conscious Culture, which is scheduled at 11 a.m. EST. Looking forward to seeing you all again. Just stay on the same screen from where you have logged in, and once our next session is broadcasted, you should be automatically in. A feedback form will pop up after this session. Would request everyone to give their feedback. Thank you.
Thank you, Mariana. I appreciate all your help. You're an incredible support, and the graciousness you expressed today is extraordinary.
No problem. Anytime for you, Dr. Amy.
Thank you. Do I get to see the feedback? I would love to get that.
Yes, we'll share it with you.
Wonderful.